Good morning everyone, or at least it's morning here in Southern Europe. I just thought I would do an extended video on where I am with this layout and what I've got left to do and where I'm going, because there's been quite a few changes which I've kind of documented piecemeal. So I'd sort of have a bit of a recap really. And this will be a fairly longish video. And then when I'm finished doing this video, I'm going to hopefully run another 3 videos. I want to talk to you about foam risers versus wooden layout construction, and that'll be my experience based on as a first timer. It's the first time I've ever done anything like this, so maybe my views will be a little bit different to anybody with a lot more experience. And then I'm going to do a real basic run-by video with my Milwaukee Road, the Olympian Hiawatha set. I'll run that on the top deck because that's these 3 locomotives are DC only. I've not got the decoders for those. And then I'm going to run some GS4s in another video running the daylight consist. And again, as you can tell, I've got a thing for GS4s. So and I don't have decoders for those yet, and that was a bit of a saga because I had a GS4 previously. I couldn't get it running on DCC, but I'll tell you about that in that video. So anyway, on to this one. So in the last year and a bit, I've done the lower deck, and you've seen plenty of videos about that, and you've seen trains running on it, and this is all wired up for DCC, and I've got a Digitrax controller for it. Just the basic one, not a top of the range one. I'm pretty happy with how everything is on the lower deck, and I think since I've done my last videos, I finished installing the freight yard area, which are these 2 tracks, which then go into the main line from this turnout, or they loop around and go through that turnout. Then over here, I've got a real basic yard layout design, and that's going to be loosely based on early 1950s intermodal. So that'll be the short Atlas piggyback cars. I'll have to hunt those down because they're not always easy to get hold of, especially here in Europe. So like everything else, I've had to buy it from all over the world, literally. And I'm sure I'll end up doing the same on these. So the other thing, of course, I've got to do is obviously take up all the track and cover the foam with paper or with plaster. I'll probably use this paper actually. I'll just show you. And this is basic painter's masking tape. And one side is sticky, and I'll glue the other side on. And I chose this because it's a lot cheaper than the wide masking tape and much more readily available. And I think it'll do the trick. So that'll be an upcoming video probably later on in the year. And I've got quite a lot to do because I've got to do it on all the lower deck foam and of course all the upper deck foam as well. The other thing I've got to do is I've got to finish purchasing my last bit of track for the helix, which you can see there. And that's basically because all the straights and the curves I had slotted for that particular task, I ended up using them on the top deck. So I've got to get some more track for that. And then of course I'll have to finish wiring in all my switches. Most of the roadbed is wired in for DCC. I've got to do this section, which I've just installed all this, and around here to this line. And obviously all along these 2 tracks, again, this crossover, this section, I've got to wire this switch in, this track, and that switch as well. So, and I don't know if I've shown you this before, but I've been using Kato isolated connectors because I ultimately want to be able to switch power on and off to certain tracks. So these are the 2 main lines, and this will be the station, of course. So I want to be able to put trains on the sidings and switch the power off if I ever want to do that. So fair amount of wiring, and of course I have to drill into the fascia and put all the switches for that, or the on-off buttons. I haven't decided which type of switch I'm going to use, or button, or toggle switch, or I don't know. I've been doing some research on that, and there's a lot of options out there. I won't be using the standard Kato throw controllers. I don't I don't particularly like the look of those. I want something that's a bit more flush. So the other major task I've got to do is I've got to obviously put the fascia on the upper deck, and I'll probably do it on the lower deck because I've got sections here which I've never finished off, and I'll obviously have to blend it in. Over here, just want to show you, obviously I got the backboard here, sorry about the light, and so I want some kind of smooth transition from where the track disappears into the back there, and the two turnouts for the helix. I want to blend that in. I still want to be able to have access to it with my hands in case I get a derailment or something. So that's another major task I've got to do. Also, don't know if you noticed or not, but this layout actually sits quite high. I mean, my iPhone camera is at eye level. And so originally when I did the bench work for it, I made it a certain height. I think it was like 1.1 meters or 110 centimeters, which comes about there, halfway to my stomach. How ironic is that, right? Anyway, because originally this wasn't going to be a double deck layout. This was going to be a single deck layout. So my task will be to remove between 5 and 10 centimeters for the bottom of all my layout legs, and I've got 16 altogether. Fortunately, I designed the layout so I can get to the 4 or 6 screws behind from inside and remove the leg that way, and I'll have to build some kind of jig or something to hold everything up whilst I'm doing it. So that in itself is going to be quite a task, and really you can blame that on bad planning on my part, I guess. But I'm glad I've made it a double deck layout. It's given me so many options, which is great. Talking of options, I don't know if I've ever said this to you before, but the whole lower deck is going to be city. Sort of freight yards, city, station, platforms. This will hopefully one day be tall buildings like small skyscrapers and things. There's going to be a road bridge coming across here and off into a tunnel. Speaking of tunnels, I got to build the scenery out to about here, and I'll have a tunnel portal. And talking about tunnel portals, I've got a lot of those to do. I mean, I've got 1, 2. I'll probably leave that as it is because I have the station over the top of that. I'll tie this in somehow with tunnel portals. I'll need 2 tunnel portals there, and I'll probably extend the scenery on these 2 sets of tracks, which is a reversing loop, to put those just to kind of offset it, because I don't want 4 tracks appearing in the same place, so I'll probably extend this a bit further out. Speaking of the reversing loop and of course the helix, I need some auto reversers, and I've been looking at the Digitrax options there, and I believe there's a couple of new ones out, so I'll be experimenting with those, and anybody got any advice on those, I'll happily take it, because I don't have any experience with those. The only section up the top which will be reversed, which will be the downward leg leading, which is this track here, that leads back down the helix. So the way I've wired everything is it all goes in the same direction. All the blue and the white wires are the same way around, apart from where it loops around here. So technically the only reversing section is this one. So that will save cost on an auto reverser. Not too sure how to do these double tracks, because from here all the way around there it leads into a switch or a turnout, and that's a double track all the way through there, down that tunnel, and then reappears here to then reverse the train to go around and back up the helix, or do a loop around the lower deck if I want to. Because it's 2 tracks, I can see a scenario where I might have one train facing west and another train facing east, or coming off the tracks to reverse the other way. I don't know, we'll see. I'll have to take some advice on that one, because I don't have much experience with that either. So that's it. So that's kind of the plans now for the next, probably for the rest of the year really. All of my major kind of sub-road bed construction is pretty much finished, with the exception of laying the paper or covering the foam for scenery and track ballasting purposes. I've got a few things I've got to iron out with with this section here, you just see down there there's one riser which I use for rising this section a certain height, and it's a bit too high. I've noticed the train just suddenly, once it reaches this point, it suddenly drops off and has quite a steep downward movement, which I don't like, and it's probably not good for the rolling stock either, and the couplers. I can see something coming uncoupled from that one day. All right. I've thought about this a lot. This is probably going to be a micro-engineering bridge. I'll have to break down and get one, unless I see something different. I may look at some laser kits. I don't know. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. No pun intended. Obviously here, all that wiring will be covered by scenery. So, but again, I've got to do, I don't know what to do. I want to be able to, like for these connectors, for example, the block connectors, I want to be able to get to those even when the scenery is in place. So I'm going to have to get creative with the foam. So that's going to be a task. So all in all, I've got as you can see, I've done a lot, but I've got a lot of work left to do. And of course, the elephant in the room is there's no backdrops. So I'll have to devise a backdrop for underneath, and obviously a cityscape style backdrop. Whether I buy something off the shelf or I paint one myself, I don't know. I've seen some good ideas, funny enough, from O-gauge railroaders, where they've used kind of grey and black buildings in the background in a kind of a shadowy type painting, or a shadowy sort of mural. I want it to look realistic, but not too realistic, if you know what I mean. I don't mind having that model train look. And then of course the top section, I want a backdrop that goes all the way along and around, and in fact this section I'll curve the backdrop around. So obviously I don't particularly like backdrops meeting in a corner. I like them to be curved, like you see on a lot of railways. And the same with this corner over here, and the same with this scenery. Obviously need to tie all that in so you don't see the cables and all that kind of stuff. So quite a lot to do. Anyway guys, that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Like I say, once I've done this video, I'm going to do hopefully another 3, and that's to cover the Woodland Scenics foam versus wood rising, or risers and inclines. And then just for fun, I'm going to do some rail fanning and run-bys with the Daylight and my GS4s, because I've not been able to run those. And the same with the Milwaukee Road Olympia. Alright, thanks very much for watching, and catch you soon. Bye.